Hi, everyone. Babula and I are back. I'm here with lovely Babula Clement, who's a fabulous astrologer. So, if any of you want to have a reading, she's the lady to see, to contact, and you can do that through her website, which is, by the way,
it's Babula Clement, as in the word clement, we think of inclement weather, or clementweather.com.au. I always forget the AU on the end, and then people say they can't find me.
okay. Well, I
Right.
just thought I'd put a plug in there straight up.
No.
So this time we've come back to talk about the next lunar cycle, which is the new moon in Libra coming up in a couple of days, because we're recording this a bit earlier. But I thought, Babula, you're such an artist. I love your paint, your art in the
Thank you.
background there.
I'm playing with pyramids at the moment and really enjoying it.
So I thought we might start off with painting, putting some paint on the canvas of what's going on astrologically, or maybe on the astrological canvas on the world stage.
Very nice. Well put. I like that. So, okay. Well, I think one thing to start with that will be probably most people will be aware of it. It feels like everything's retrograde at the moment. Not everything is, but a lot of the planets that can go retrograde are currently retrograde. All the outer planets. So I'll list them quickly. That's Jupiter, Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are all retrograde. Now, that's not unusual because those planets are all retrograde for 4 to 5 months every year. But it is significant when that's all happening at the same time.
I was just going to say, it doesn't normally happen all together, does it?
That's right. And also, of course, as most people will be aware who are watching this, Mercury's retrograde. And of course, cheeky, naughty, mischievous Mercury does this 3 times a year, and it's always for around 21 days. So he's currently in retrograde motion. So that's, that's a lot of retrograde energy. And all we have to do is think of any word that starts with RE, the prefix RE, return.
Yeah.
Review, revise, reconsider, reevaluate.
Can it also make things feel like they're going slower?
Definitely.
Yeah, or like you're coming up against a wall, or things that you've sown seeds for are just not happening yet, and all those sorts of
Yes, that's right. Because like what it represents, and this doesn't actually happen in the sky, but it's as though from our perspective on Earth and where we sit in our solar system, as we watch the movement of the planets in the sky, they're moving forward, and then they appear to slow right, each one in a different time, slows right down and appears to stop or station, and then moves back and goes back over that territory that it's just come through for a period of time. Now, they don't actually change direction, because we would be in a bit of trouble if the planet started changing direction. But it's from our perspective on Earth, and they really do have an impact. So it's that sense of going back over where we've just been to look more closely, to dig a bit deeper, to review, to question, to reevaluate, to reconsider. And that can, for everyone, that will play it in all sorts of different ways, depending on life circumstances and so on and so on. So it is a kind of slowing down. And I think, I think integration is a good word. It's a period because life's moving so fast. It's like everything's going at breakneck speed. And that seems to be accelerating, in recent years. It is a time of reconsideration and integration, to just take a bit of a pause and look a bit more closely, go back over something. It can be a fantastic time for study, research, tying up loose ends, completing projects, just clearing out old stuff, in whatever that means to us. That can mean all sorts of things, but clearing out old stuff, doing deeper work psychologically, spiritually. I think it can be an incredibly valuable and necessary time.
Yes. Yeah.
But also frustrating, especially when Mercury goes retrograde. Some people love it. I always find it a bit challenging.
Yeah. Well, I've found that I've sort of been in the flow because for a few months back it was all a bit slow, and then things took off again, and now I've sort of come. Oh, it's like the wind goes out of your sails.
Yeah.
That
There's a
sort of thing.
lull.
Oh, where did all that go? Where's my flow? You know.
That's right. That's right. There's a sort of a lull, and yeah, and there can be during, especially with Mercury, there can be times when things are a bit jarring or a bit chaotic or uncertain,
Mm.
you know, and then slowly, like there's, Mercury will be retrograde until the 2nd of October, and then on the 9th, Pluto, who's been retrograde for nearly 5 months, he will slowly start to turn direct. And by the end of the month, around the 23rd, Saturn will turn direct. So we're coming to a period where slowly, one by one, these planets will start, like an astrology that I enjoy. She talks about it. She likens it to it like a great big ship out at sea. They're moving in one direction, and then it takes a lot to kind of slow it down, bring it to a standstill, and then turn back again.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, and and it can be a time where a lot is being uncovered, a lot of old stuff is being uncovered, and then slowly as each one starts to move forward, like this happened last year too, the second half of the year is a lot of planets retrograde, and then I think there was about 2 months in the first part of last year, and I think we'll see something very similar next year. There's a period when nothing was retrograde.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And it's like all systems go.
Yes, and that was what the time when we were coming together and going, whew.
That's right. That's right.
So much happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really like a deepening period, and it's wonderful for doing deeper work, whatever that means, whether it's related to our job, our work, or spiritual soul work. We're just going deeper.
Yes. Yeah.
But it can be challenging because we can get frustrated. Things aren't going the way we want them to go necessarily.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Lots of miscommunications, or I'm thinking about Mercury. We've talked about this before, with the media, with perhaps not truthful communication, those sorts of things.
Definitely.
Being told one thing, but actually something else is happening, that sort of thing, so.
That's right.
It sort of controls the narrative too, doesn't it?
That's right. And then during retrograde periods, it can be a time where we're looking deeper and we're questioning, well, why is that the case? Why are they all around the world all saying the same thing in unison without any sign of any questioning or challenging, in the public arena? So what's that about? And, who or what's controlling that? So, people who dig around in these things, retrograde phases can be a time where a lot more can be sort of dug up, and come to light. And we can apply that to our own lives as well. Like it's often, Mercury goes retrograde, and I'm going to talk about Mars too, of course, because we're, at the end of October, Mars will turn retrograde, which is a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Suddenly a piece of information can fall into our lap through a conversation or a phone call, or someone says something to you, even in your personal life, that can have a huge impact. Just a piece of information that you didn't know, perhaps related to your family or whatever, or even to do with health, and you just go, oh my God, that makes all the difference in the world.
Can be like a turning point in your perspective.
It really can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to stop and look at something more closely, more deeply. Yeah. So all the usual challenges of Mercury retrograde, traffic jams, mishaps with, I thought my phone had stopped working this morning because I thought I'd fully charged it. It was plugged in, but the plug had somehow come half out of the socket, and I didn't know that. I'm thinking, oh no, what's wrong with my phone? I don't want to have to buy a new phone. It was just on zero charge.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was going to be, so anyway, everything's fine.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing often happens during Mercury. You know, the washing machine goes on the blink, things like that. Those practical, frustrating, annoying things we're so good at.
Yeah.
But often cost us money.
Yeah.
You know?
How annoying.
Really, how annoying. That's right.
So we're going to kick off with the new moon in Libra then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually talking about Mercury is quite relevant to this new moon coming up on the 23rd, because Mercury turned retrograde in Libra, but is going to retrograde back into Virgo for a period of time. And while it's on that cusp of Virgo Libra, it's going to join with the new moon. So on the 23rd, we have the equinox. I want to talk about that before we go to the new moon. So the equinox, sorry, I said the new moon's on the
Yeah, I was thinking,
23rd.
I'm
misreading my notes. The equinox is on the 23rd when the sun is at 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Libra.
Yep.
And the equinox point at 0 of Libra is exactly conjunct Mercury retrograde at 0 of Libra before he moves back into Virgo. So this equinox day on the 23rd, and these equinox solstice points happen, you know, every 3 months, and they're very important, quite powerful times of transition and change every year, right? So it's our spring equinox down here in the Antipodes, and this one will be sitting right next to Mercury retrograde. And then, of course, a couple of days later, on the 26th, we'll have the new moon at 2 degrees of Libra, where the sun and the moon are both together. And that conjunction with Mercury retrograde will still be there, but now Mercury will have moved back into Virgo. So there's a lot to unpack with all of that.
Yeah, so that would be very confusing to someone who's not too terribly familiar with astrology.
Exactly. That's a lot of kind of astrological mumbo jumbo and words in all of that. So I'll just talk a bit more about that Mercury. So when he goes back into Virgo, Mercury rules the sign of Virgo. It's very strong. And Virgo has a lot to do with health and healing, as does Mercury, actually. And so some people might find that their health is challenged while Mercury is retrograding back in Virgo before it turns direct again. And the fact that it's right on this solstice and new moon energy can really sort of strengthen its impact. But of course, Virgo is also about crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Yes.
Can be a really helpful time to focus on, you know, unfinished business to do with, you know, all the sort of quite mundane administration of our lives in this modern world. We talked about this last time, I think, how the administration of our lives used to be quite simple. It's not anymore, is it?
No, too much red tape for me.
There's so much of it. So lots of sorting and sifting, but that can also be helpful on a mental level, just to sift through stuff, literally, mentally, you know, get more clarity. But let's talk Libra, shall we? And I noticed, you know, you're wearing, I often think of Libra as these kind of soft pinks and blues, and I'm wearing pink, and you've got the...
That's why I put it on.
Yes, exactly.
Illusion.
Me too. I went for the same thing. And, you know, it's ruled by Venus. Yeah. And, you know, people listening to this will all have different kinds of views and relationships with the sign of Libra. It's the 7th sign of the zodiac. So it's like the first half of the zodiac from Aries through to Virgo, sort of completed, because the year starts in Aries in March, astrologically. And now we're at that halfway point. This is the sign of relationship.
Yes. Actually, my grandmother was a Libra.
Ah,
Her birthday was the 20th of October. And as a child, I lived with her for 10 years. My mother and I did actually. And she always had these beautiful gardens, perfectly manicured. And inside the house, she was always painting the color, changing the colors of the walls.
wow.
And it was like I grew up in a show home. It was all very, everything had its place, basically.
Yes,
Yeah. So it was a lovely interior,
yes,
beautiful, great chi energy flowing throughout,
yeah.
even though it was a madhouse. But all that madness occurred in a beautiful home. So,
Wow, wow.
yeah, but it was, and she certainly had that, that Libran touch for sure.
Yeah, it's such a natural instinct for Libra. For most Librans, there are some Librans whose main focus is relationship and so on, and others are very much oriented towards that creating beauty, which is another Venus aspect and quality.
Yes. She was
And
also,
they couldn't do it any other way.
yes, she was also a bit of a family diplomat.
Yeah.
So she'd say, "Well, I'm just going to step in here and talk about what you've said and talk about what you've said." And of course, that wasn't always the way, of course, but
Yes.
generally that was her approach to things. And she always had a favourite saying, "You can catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar." I thought, "Oh gosh, how Libran is that?"
So Libran, because in like medically and in the body, Venus, the ruler of Libra, actually governs sugar, and it's one of the reasons Venusian people, Taurians, Librans, people with strong Venus, they love sweet foods. So honey's very much, but that is so true. Because
Yeah.
the opposite sign, Aries, goes in with guns blazing,
Yes.
and but Libra is the negotiator, isn't it? The peacemaker.
Yeah. Well, it tries to be. It doesn't always work.
No,
But
but that's right.
I imagine that they're the family relationship counselors, the mediators, those sorts of people. Anywhere that that sort of things that require bringing people together, because it's all about others with Libra, isn't it? It's about the other, to create that
Yeah.
relationship.
I've noticed over the years,
Oh,
it often shows up in the charts of who are successful, surprisingly have Libra in their chart because it gives them a certain charm, and an ability to be at ease in situations where people, it can be very helpful because it's not a go get him kind of, although it is cardinal, but it does it with a certain social graciousness. Like they make great hosts and hostesses, for example. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's really at the heart of it. It's a sign that's all about our human relationships, and human relationships are fraught with all kinds of challenges.
Yes.
Yes. So Libra is always working quite hard at trying to bring harmony. Oh God, this world needs more of that. Harmony into the. And I was thinking about this morning. No, we'd be talking about this today. I just it hadn't really occurred to me before, but in my family system, my immediate family of parents, siblings, children, grandchildren, there's almost no Libra energy in the chart. Isn't that interesting? It's not an energy that's shown up as a strong theme in my own life and experience, but some people, they'll be going, oh, I know Libra very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. But you had a Libran grandmother, and it's a great example.
Yeah. Yesterday also because Libra is about balance as well. So I was reading something really interesting, which I hadn't sort of thought about before, but it was saying that, and it was an old astrology book, and it was saying that it correlates to things that require balance, like seesaws or teeter-totters, what they call them in the US, or ping pong, backwards and forwards, jugglers.
Yes.
Even hot and cold taps.
Yes.
Trying to put it through and get the right temperature, right?
Exactly.
What else was there? Chessboards was another thing. and art galleries, of course, and even dusk, because it's between night and day. It's that balance time, you know?
Yes. And so that's what this equinox is, it's called equinox, equal. The spring out, the Libra equinox, of course it's autumn in the northern hemisphere. But that's right. It's a time when the sun is kind of rising up over the equator, and night and day are at perfect balance. They're exactly 12 hours nighttime, 12 hours dark time. Such a fantastic symbol, isn't it, for this theme? And so these equinox points, and this Libran equinox point that always happens in September every year around the world, is a time when we can, and then the sun will spend the next 4 weeks in Libra, when we can be reflecting on, how is my life out of balance? What's out of balance?
Yes. Yeah.
People talk about the work-life balance, and there's all kinds of ways our life and our own internal landscape can be thrown off balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing too, I think, is like the shadow side of Libra, because it's all about having that balance and having relationship. But when it's out of balance, it's not about us together, it's about us apart. So there's competition, right? That competitiveness that comes up. Yeah, and comparisons, I suppose, too.
That's right.
Mm.
That's right. I say this all the time, so I think it's really important for us to really understand this, that in astrology, every planet and every sign has a shadow. So there'll be some people listening to this are going, I love everything about Libra, and others are going, I find Librans really difficult, so we all have a different relationship with these things.
Yeah.
But the shadow of Libra can be a tendency to never stand up for yourself and keep the peace at any price. Don't rock the boat, don't cause a disturbance. Put all your energy into maintaining peace and equilibrium, because there can be a deep fear of conflict, which is the opposite sign of Aries.
Yeah.
So every sign, it's really helpful to understand the polarity, because they don't work in isolation. It's a polarity. So sometimes we're called upon to stand up for ourselves and enter the fray and be dynamic, and other times peace and harmony and equilibrium are really valuable, but if a Libran is afraid of conflict and their own anger, for example, they'll be working hard at keeping the peace at any price.
Yes, that's not
healthy.
Because it makes you a bit of a doormat, doesn't it?
That's right. And it can be like always charming, always nice, and never showing other parts, because you don't want to create, you want to be seen always as someone who's nice and easy to get, and they are easy to get on with.
Yeah.
But, so it's always interesting, and I think really important to look at, and what can be the challenging shadowy energies of each sign.
Yes, yeah. The other thing too I've noticed with some Libran people is that because they see two sides of everything, they can't sort of make up their mind. They can't actually come to a decision about very much of anything, so they tend to not do things.
That's right. And what you just did then, I've seen that all the time in classes and workshops when people start talking Libra, they actually start doing this.
Yeah.
Because, it's the scales of justice, isn't it?
Yep.
Always like the seesaw, weighing things up. Well, on the one hand, if I made this choice, but then again, I can see the opposite side, and look, that looks really like good too.
Yes.
And so you're absolutely right. Like, choice is a big issue in this sign, and very often Librans find it difficult. I've experienced over the years, often, like if someone's late to a workshop, for example, or a class, I used to notice this years ago, like it'll often be the Libran because they got lost.
Oh, okay.
Especially back in the day when we used to read maps.
Yes.
And they'd come to T-junction or something and go, now, was it left or right? I can't remember. And I'm not, and they would just end up getting lost. It's very interesting how these things play out.
That is curious, isn't it?
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, making a decision and choosing between two opposite things. I remember years ago, again, a student, she had two young children, and I think one of them was a Libra, and she learnt never to ask the Libran little boy if he wanted a chocolate or a strawberry ice cream. She'd just buy him an ice cream and he'd be as happy as could be.
Yes.
She gave him a choice. He couldn't cope. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But that's good that the mother could understand.
I know, she spotted it. She goes, oh, here's an ice cream. And he's totally happy. He's got an ice cream.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that's a real dilemma. I remember 2 years ago, I came across this book written by an Australian historian. His name I can't recall. And he wrote a book called The Tyranny of Choice.
Yeah.
The phrase has always stuck with me. Like, what are we going to choose when we're faced with a fork in the road?
That must have been terrible in the 80s when suddenly we had all these products on the shelf, which were, you had like 2 or 3 choices before that, and suddenly there were a lot. And I remember my neighbour came home and she said, I wanted to get some spaghetti for the kids, out of a tin.
Yeah.
But there's spaghetti with cheese. There's spaghetti with this, spaghetti with that. I just want a tin of spaghetti.
Exactly right.
And she was really frustrated because
it is frustrating. That's right.
She said, too many choices. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, there's and of course we're all facing really big situations in life, in the world now, and people are being confronted with some really major choices that have major consequences.
Yeah.
Depending on which way we go. Either way has consequences.
Yeah.
So these are big dilemmas, and for many, some, if you're really clear about your position, that's great. But if not, it can feel like being stuck on, between a rock and a hard place about choice.
And I imagine people who can't make choices easily tend to ask a lot of other people what their opinion is, which is always coloured with other people's ideas and thoughts. And
that's right.
I imagine it would be quite difficult at times for Librans. I'm talking about classic Librans, of course, to walk to the beat of their own drum.
Yes, because there's always an awareness of the other in Libra. In Aries, not.
Yeah.
It's just by nature independent. And of course, some people have Aries and Libra in their chart.
Yeah.
But and when we come to the full moon, we'll see that, because the sun will be in Libra opposite the full moon in Aries, and that's when that issue of that polarity really comes up strongly. But that whole dilemma of making it, and at this Libran equinox every September, it's a very potent few days at the equinoxes and solstices, and it's always at 0 degrees of one of the 4 cardinal signs, and the cardinal signs are all about a new beginning and initiating something new and moving forward from that point. And in Libra, that is, what choices am I going to make over these days and in the coming weeks that will set my life and my interior world off in a direction that feels harmonious and right to me. So choices, we're going to be faced with choices. And as I said, Mercury's, and it's interesting, isn't it, that this new moon comes just a couple of days straight after the equinox, with Mercury retrograde all over it.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's always more.
There's more.
There's more. Both the equinox at 0 and the new moon at 2 of Libra are sitting in a very strong opposition to Jupiter in Aries. So there's the Aries energy.
Okay.
So the Jupiter in Aries, as he's retrograding back towards his final little foray into Pisces, Jupiter in Aries is just like gung-ho, let's go. Let's move forward.
Mm.
But of course, he's retrograde.
Yes.
And it's opposite Mercury retrograde at 0 of Libra on this equinox. So there's a lot going on around this whole issue around what choices and decisions am I making, and how to balance that need to bring as much balance and harmony into my life, at the same time, being true to who I am and being able to stand up for myself and so on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that through in regard to the world stage, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of people are making choices, the US, Australia, Canada,
Yeah.
the Britain, Russia, Ukraine,
That's
a
right.
lot of people are involved in those choices at the moment. And I don't always think that they're all based on a harmonious outcome, unfortunately.
No, exactly.
And I know we're going off track a little bit, but we were chatting about this before
Absolutely.
we started recording. So I must go and have another look at Russia's transiting chart.
Yeah, yes. It's
Yeah.
fascinating watching the charts and tracking that of countries, especially countries that are kind of really to the fore in current events.
Yes, and the US.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
mm,
Yeah, so it's a bit of a pivotal time, these equinox points.
mm.
And like I was thinking about this, and I made a note, because I forget things, of this theme of choice is very strong right now because of the Libran theme. Mars is in Gemini. Gemini is a sign of duality. Do I go this way? Do I go that way? Things get split down the middle. Mars in Gemini is square to Neptune, which is in Pisces, the sign of two fish. Right? So we've got Libra, two opposite points of view. We've got Gemini, the two twins. We've got Pisces, the two fish.
Oh my gosh.
Mercury's retrograde. There's a bunch of planets retrograde.
Mm.
Saturn and Uranus are moving into position to make their final square, which has been going on all through last year and this year, over the next 2 months. And they're very different energies pushing up hard against each other. Saturn control, the old order, the rules, the restrictions, and Uranus, that urge to break free and go your own way, in the collective. Eris is still strongly in a square, in Capricorn, in Aries, I beg your pardon, square Pluto in Capricorn. Saturn and Uranus are all over the nodes in Scorpio. I mean, there's just so much going on of this sense of the tension of so much happening, and what kind of choices are we making in the middle of all of this? And one of the challenges of that is we don't even have all the information.
Yes.
We don't even really know what's going to happen next. So how are we making choices?
And did you say Neptune's in Pisces? Going into Pisces?
Well, that's a long process. But why
right.
it's relevant now is that it's square to Mars.
Yes.
And Mars is going to make 3 squares to Neptune in Pisces in the coming 6 months or so because of the retrograde phase of Mars.
So there's, sorry.
I've just finished that little bit. In 2 signs, Gemini and Pisces, that are all about duality, 2 fish, 2 twins. So there's a lot of things moving and shifting on a daily basis.
We're
We're being called to make choices, in the midst of it.
And not much clarity about it.
No.
Yeah. But in all that astro speak, maybe you could sort of distill that down into layman's terms for people who are still learning astrology, as to what that might mean.
Well, this idea of duality, which is just feels like so strong right now, where there's kind of 2 different ways of seeing everything. There's this way of seeing it, and then there's this information, and then there's this opposing information. There's this option, and then there's this option. So that's Libra, the choice of 2 different polarities. Pisces is the two fish, one swims up to the heavens, to God, to spirit. The other is down here embedded in the, the fleshy, worldly experience. So we're making our choices based on physical 3D survival mode, or from a deeper sense of connection to the universe, to God, to trust and faith and so on. Gemini, Mars activating Gemini very strongly for many months to come now. Mars is a planet of action and energy. It stimulates and energizes any sign that it's in. And so it's energizing Gemini, the mind. And Gemini, the twins, is always about this and that, this and its opposite. It's like a warrior ready for action, but he might be being given two different orders from two different commanders.
Yes.
Which way am I supposed to go?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Yeah,
that one just sort of popped in somehow. So I was trying to sort of see, I think images are helpful, aren't they? Metaphors are helpful. And all those other things I listed, like Saturn, the old order, the strictures, the structures, the old ways, squaring Uranus, the impulse for the new and to revolt against the old and to break free of that. So it's like at the moment, everywhere we look, we're seeing this challenge around, unless we have absolute clarity, even if we don't have all the information, if we're really clear about fundamentally where we stand and why we're here, and what our purpose is, that helps a lot. But if we're confused, this can be an incredibly confusing, disorienting, overwhelming time. Does that help?
I was just thinking that people who aren't quite
astrologically sort of literate and experienced.
Yes. And I'm not quite there myself, but I was understanding what you were saying, but I just thought it might help people. No,
that's great. Thanks. That's yes, we astrologers, we when we get together, we just off we go, and
whole other language, isn't it?
And I'm a huge fan as an astrology teacher, and I read charts for people and so on. I like to make it digestible and user-friendly as possible. Otherwise, what's the point if it gets too abstract? So it is a lot.
So we're going to have we're going to have an interesting couple of lunar cycles till the end of the year, with everything else going on.
Definitely. There's a lot coming up, and we'll see it in the world stage and in the news, and even for those of us who don't watch the news anymore, we still hear about the main events from different places. So a lot going on, and of course that translates to everyone's personal lives as well. And eclipses will be coming up. Where are my notes about the sequence? So yes, this new, and of course there are many people who like to work with the lunar cycles and set in place new intentions and visions at every new moon. And it's usually recommended not to do it on the day of the new moon, but often like the day after, to let that new energy begin to really come through. So I'll just kind of run through after the new moon. On the 29th, Venus will go into Libra. Now, that's really lovely. Venus rules Libra. She'll be so happy to be her gracious self in Libra. Look, for anyone here who, like me, likes to paint, when I can find time and space to do that, This is a wonderful one for any kind of creative artistic expression. Venus in Libra.
Mm.
And as the sun goes through Libra, and it can be as simple as you just go, you're looking around at your living room and going, I need to repaint the walls. I need a change of color. I need new cushions on the couch, like I don't want that couch there anymore. I'm going to move it over here. That feels better.
Yes.
Because interior design, feng shui, these things are all governed by the sign of Libra.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely.
So yeah, Venus will be very happy in Libra, joining. Actually, on that note, later in October, and I'll talk more about the significance of this, Venus and the sun will come together at 29 degrees of Libra. This is in October. October is going to be quite a strong month, forming what we call a Venus star point.
Mm.
And there's a certain significance about that particular one. So I'll talk about that further on. So yeah, Venus goes into Libra at the end of September. Mercury goes direct on the 2nd of October. I always go, I tend, I know not everyone's like this, but I go 2 more days to go. Things always kind of feel easier for me after that. Pluto goes direct on the 9th. And then on the 12th, Mars will make its first square to Neptune. And that can feel a little bit chaotic and unstable and disorienting, that particular square. But again, really fantastic for any kind of inspired, imaginative work. Mars in Gemini, anything to do with words, writing, communicating, being more like an open channel for information to come through. Great for anyone who writes. But yeah, also mixed messages.
You said that was Mars square Neptune.
Mars square Neptune.
Yeah.
Mars and Gemini square Neptune. Mixed messages. Yeah. And then, towards the end, where am I? Yes. And then of course we'll come to the full moon. Libra, the Libra Aries full moon.
The Libra Aries the Libra full moon.
Yeah, it's an Aries full moon with the sun in Libra opposite, the moon, the full moon in the sign of Aries. And I thought I had it here, but I didn't I know I printed the chart out, but I can't recall the exact date, but it'll be pretty much 14 days after the new moon on the 26th of September. So somewhere around the 10th.
Yeah.
Apologies for not having the exact date.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a bit of a I guess I want to say hectic, but it's not that full few months to the end of the year.
Yes,
with a lot of processing needed to be going on.
Yes,
fact checking once again.
Yes,
a lot of choices to be made.
Yes,
etc., etc.
And quite a lot of major events going on the world scene. A lot of things kind of moving and shifting, and some of them can be quite, significant and even a bit dramatic.
Yes.
Eclipse season's coming up. Mars goes retrograde. The Saturn-Uranus square gets closer and closer, and tightens up. Yeah, but in that, as I said, some of the planets will start moving direct again, but that also facilitates the sense of, okay, things are moving now, which can also mean things are moving in a big way.
Yes, yeah.
It can be in a big dramatic way in some cases.
And we must say about the big wet too, because Jupiter's going back into Pisces, isn't it?
Pisces for a while.
Yeah, so there could be more rain on the way, folks.
Yes, and lots of it.
Yep. And I think it goes, I can't remember the date that it does that in October, but I know it goes through to the 21st of December.
Yeah. Where have I got that here? It goes back into Pisces at the end of October on the 28th.
Okay, 28th, to
which
the
is
20th.
just 2 days before Mars turns retrograde.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when these planets change sign and change direction, something shifts. Yeah, there's significant, noticeable energetic shift.
So get your gutters cleaned out.
Right,
So the
exactly.
water flows.
Get some supplies in.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think, themes of this Libra period are choices.
Yeah.
And it can be a really nice time to be just connecting with friends. It's a social sign, Libra. It's about people.
Yes.
Making time out to go and meet your friends for coffee and catching up with friends. It can be a really beneficial, healthy, helpful thing to do, to not sort of shut ourselves. Libra doesn't like shutting itself away. It wants to connect with people.
Yeah. It likes people.
That's right.
How can it be beautiful? There's no one around to adore it.
Exactly. And share all that beauty with. That's right.
Yeah. I was thinking before too about it's a very Libran thing, I think, when you hear a beautiful piece of music or you see a wonderful dancer and it's just in a beautiful setting, you go, oh, it was just so beautiful,
Yes.
that sort of situation. Yeah.
And it does our heart the world of good. It's a heart sign. It's ruled by Venus. Yeah, it really does. And really must, before we leave that, must remember to say that Libra is also about the law.
Oh, yes.
The law and justice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in the law courts that's not being spoken of in the main frame, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of major, huge court cases going on.
Yes, which you won't see on the mainstream news, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. So, and this is going on all around the world. So Libra is, this is the goddess of justice outside the law courts, every law court in the Western world. And, she holds the scales of justice. And it's interesting that Saturn, the planet that represents karma, amongst other things, is exalted in Libra. His job in Libra is to ensure the balancing out of karma. Isn't that interesting? Which is it's actually about justice.
Yeah.
So I've always found that really fascinating, that Saturn doesn't rule Libra, but it's exalted, meaning it's a really strong and good and healthy placement for Saturn. And for anyone born with Saturn in Libra, as I was, it's like in this life, there's a lot of karmic balancing going on.
Yes.
And so that's also what Libra is about. It's bringing things back into balance, because when the scales have swung that way, and this is what Chinese medicine is all about.
Yeah.
And Feng Shui, and, which is all ruled by Libra. It's something's out of balance. And it's not a static place. How do we keep adjusting to bring some balance back and harmony back? So I think balance and harmony.
Get on the seesaw.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't been on one of those for years.
Yeah, well, I've got little grandchildren, so I have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you once again for all your knowledge and sharing that with all of us.
So welcome, and thank you. I enjoy our chats.
Yes. Okay. And until next time, everyone stay safe. Remember, if you enjoyed this, to please like the episode. Do share with your friends. Hit the subscribe button, tap the bell to make sure you get notifications. And until we see you again at the next lunar cycle, stay safe and be well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.